Hi, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. I want to thank you so much for joining us today for this research proposal webinar, where we will be going over application information and the submission process for research proposals for the 2024-2025 funding cycle. I'm Laura Barth, and I'm the research coordinator with AFE. And we also have Dr. Terril Nell with us, who some of you probably know, and I'll let Terril introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Terril Nell, and I'm the research director for American Floral Endowment. Prior to this, I was where many of you sit in the university, and seeking support from American Floral Endowment and other industry groups. So I understand your interest in this. And I've been in this role for almost 10 years. Laura?
All right, so now I'll go over what we're going to be discussing today. So we will be going over the application timeline from when you submit your proposal to when you receive notification of funding, some of the general requirements for the proposals, as well as our new online submission form, our research priorities, what makes a good proposal. I know many of you are probably wondering that. Requirements and timelines if your project does receive funding. And then we'll open it up for questions and answers. So here's our research timeline. Proposals are due on August 1st. Once we receive all the proposals, they will be forwarded to SAF Growers Council and for industry review. And then the AFE Research Committee reviews those as well. And they'll look at the scores that SAF gave those proposals. Then we'll decide which proposals will move on to the peer review process, and we will notify the researchers if your proposal was advanced to this stage or not. And that will take place in October or November. Usually we finish up the peer review process in mid-November. Then once that is completed, the AFE Research Committee will review the scores from both the peer review process as well as the SAF Growers Council review, and then we will make funding decisions. And researchers will be notified by January 15th whether they have received funding or not. And then funding will begin on July 1st of 2024. So it's broken down into two payments. You receive your first payment July or August, and then the second one will come the following January. Now for some general requirements of the proposals themselves. So you must submit the application online. We do require that projects be 1 to 3 years in length. We highly encourage the inclusion of preliminary results. We also require a brief literature review that includes relevant research conducted either domestically or internationally. And when you're putting your budgets together, AFE policies do not allow for the payment of overhead or indirect costs. Projects with multiple researchers at the same or different institutions are considered and encouraged if the research can be better accomplished that way. And if you are submitting a proposal with multiple researchers, we do require that you indicate a team leader for the project. Like most funded projects, we do require acknowledgement of funding by AFE in all presentations and publications, and we will provide you with the current logo that you can use. And we also require that you contact 2 industry representatives about your project for feedback, just so you can see if it's relevant, see what the industry and what growers actually think about this research. So this is brand new for 2023. We have a fully online application submission process. So you can create an account and log in and submit your proposals and edit your proposals, and I will walk through that in a second. It's very easy, and you can find it at endowment.org/research. And so I will pull that up. So you can access the proposal or the application through the drop-down menu itself, through research applications. And you can also access it through our general research page, which is the link I included, where you can find out more information about AFE funded research. You can find our research priorities here. You can find out some of the ways that AFE research has benefited the industry. And then in our quick links down here are some of the links you'll find useful for the application process. So to get started, just click this Apply Here button. And you will, if you are making a new account, you will just go to this My Account tab. And then you'll create a new account. And so you enter your email address, you'll receive a confirmation, and then you can get started. So once you have created your account, you can log in. You'll want to click Continue into Applicant Portal. And I have just a demo application here in progress that I'll show you. And you can see your proposals listed here. And so this is what the actual application looks like. You have your applicant information here. Your project information. And I want to stress this part, the industry challenge this project addresses and the research goals. These brief descriptions are, a lot of the industry reviewers will be looking at these closely. So I suggest you create some thoughtful descriptions. You'll have your project start and end date, as well as researcher information, along with your category that aligns with our research priorities, which Terril will go over shortly. So then your project description, this will be similar to previous years where you will submit a 3-page PDF project description that includes the precise identification of the current and or potential problem, the project objectives, the proposed industry impact of the research to the industry, as well as your preliminary data. You can include an appendix if you have a little bit more that fits into 3 pages. We've seen that before. And then please be sure to list the resources and facilities that are available to you to carry out this project, as well as citations of pertinent literature. And so then you can just, once that's created, you can just upload that here. And then you will also upload your CV. The next page is the budget information. And so you can list staffing costs, equipment, travel, materials, supplies, etc. If you have a multi-year project, you can list the anticipated year 2 and year 3 budget requirements. And then any descriptions of equipment over $5,000. And you can provide a list of materials and supplies. Then we have payment information where the grant will be, who it's payable to. And then any additional researchers who will be involved in this project. Then you can list other funding sources, such as agriculture experimental stations, USDA research initiatives, or other outside funds. And then, as I mentioned, we do require that you contact 2 industry representatives, and then you will list their names right there. And then at that point, you can save and finalize your application. And at any point during this application process, you are able to save it and you can log out and you can come back to it later and it'll be right there for you. And then after you submit the application, you'll receive confirmation via email. So if you don't receive that confirmation email, just reach out to me or Terril and we can help you. So now I'll let Terril talk about our research priorities.
Okay, thank you, Laura. You can read these as well as I can. But the research committee takes a great deal of time to think through priorities. And they look at the priorities as what are the issues that are going to be facing the industry or could face the industry in the next 5 years. In some cases, if we ask them, what kind of project are you thinking about, such as automation technology, AI leading to labor savings, they're not going to come up with a project and say, this is what we're looking for. But they're looking for labor savings. And if automation technology, AI can add to that, then they're interested. When you put all these together, it's about as broad as you can go in floriculture research, other than marketing, and we do not support marketing research in American Floral Endowment. The ones that are here, in some cases, were actually presented to the research committee from industry. And we're always asking industry, what's your greatest challenge? What do you need research on? And I can give you an example on that. Down near the bottom is botrytis control and management and thrips control and management. And in about 2016, the industry came to AFE and said, we're getting killed with botrytis and thrips. We talked through it with them. They ended up supporting a 5-year program that was done at American universities. Some of the research was done in Columbia, and came out with some really, really good information. It's very usable. It's been been placed into trade publications, a newsletter for the sponsors 3 times a year. And now we've got videos and training programs dealing with botrytis and thrips. You'll be seeing more of that. There's one article that will be in Grower Talks in July. So I think this gives a great deal of flexibility in terms of what you're looking for. I can't overemphasize the importance of talking with industry. All the proposals are rated, and Laura mentioned this, by 2 groups. One is the SAF Flower Council, Grower Council, and the research committee within AFE. What they're doing is really not judging the research in most cases, but judging the relevance to the project and meeting the industry needs. And when that is rated by those groups, they're combined. The research committee gets a joint score, and they look and see, what did the SF group do? What did the AFE group do? And they take that very seriously. If the proposal is not judged as high need by those 2 groups, it is unlikely they're going to flow through to the peer evaluation. So talk with industry. We list our board members. You might know some of them. Talk to them, but talking to the industry is key here, so that your project is very, very relevant and has a value to the industry. Okay, Laura. So what makes a good proposal? Obviously, just discussed relevancy. It just has to be relevant. And one of the groups has actually asked for us to summarize it for them in terms of value to the industry. And they're probably not even going to look at the methods or anything like that. We'll do that along with peer review. They want to know about the researchers and the programs. One way to let them know who you are is to publish in trade magazine articles. Show that you have a background in the research that you're proposing. Laura mentioned some preliminary research. They want to know your access to facilities, and usually there is a letter from the university saying that they support your proposal and that the facilities are available. methods and procedures, that's important. More important for the peer reviewers than it is for the industry groups that are evaluating it. And then really a realistic timetable, a budget and approach. And one of the questions in the evaluation form is, can this research be done in the timetable presented? So it really gets down to the nitty gritty. Industry significance, a little bit different from relevancy, but demonstrate that the project and the research methods will advance the floral industry. I mean, that's the goal. AFE is funded by the industry. It's industry money. And so it needs to be work that they understand, and it will change how they're doing business. And then what are your plans for publications and presentations? If you had, like I say, if you've already done trade magazine articles, already done any webinars, list it. It shows that you're trying to get the information that you've developed in research into the hands of the industry. And yes, you can share it in scientific journals, and for the university you have to, but we have a grower newsletter. We're always happy to take articles. The trade magazines are more than happy to have current research, and if you're funded by AFE, we usually have several of them who will publish it and actually put the AFE logo on the front page. And we will also be asking anybody who's funded probably to provide an industry publication that we can put in our grower newsletter, publish in trade magazines, or to do webinars. And we're doing webinars monthly. And so we need content from those people who are funded. The one thing I did not mention, relevancy or industry significance. When the industry looks at the proposals, they are looking at them to have national and possibly international impact. If a proposal is benefiting one half of one state, it's unlikely that it's going to get the nod. So you need to think broad, think about the whole industry, whether it's grower, wholesale, or retail. So, Laura.
All right, thank you. And so now we'll just go over what happens if you get funded. So if you get funded, if you have a multiple year project, we do require that you submit a continued funding report by June 1st of each year. And this also serves as a progress report just to see where you are in your project, what kind of results you have. And I also use these for creating articles. Terril mentioned some of our newsletters. We have a monthly newsletter as well as our grower newsletter. That one's called Growing Further. And so I will use the information sometimes from the continued funding report to create some articles. And these articles don't just get shared through AFE. A lot of times other industry newsletters will pick them up, such as GPN or Greenhouse Grower. I've seen our articles also show up in Flora Daily and Horta Daily. So our newsletter articles do have kind of a big reach. When your project is done, we require a final project report that is submitted within 60 days of the project. And we upload these reports to our website. We have a very nice repository of our research projects, which shows, our impact that we've had on the industry. And then these as well will also get shared in our newsletters and also probably more broadly within the industry in those other newsletters that pick up our articles. In addition to the reports, Terril mentioned this, but we have our AFE newsletters, like I mentioned. And then we also have our GrowPro webinar series. We really like to feature our researchers in these webinars. It highlights AFE research, and it also just provides really good information for growers and for people who can actually use your research results and put them into practice. We have usually very high ratings of these webinars, high attendance, and people indicate that they can use the information presented very quickly or immediately after the presentations. So we have a number of opportunities for you to be able to share your research through AFE.
Laura, I would add on the GrowPro webinars, They are very different than any academic webinar. And we've had to talk people through this. The webinars are 30 to 35 minutes long. That's what the industry has asked us to do. Our research committee has asked us to do. And the remainder of the hour is spent with Q&A. And it's usually filled with questions from the participants. But in that 30, 35-minute presentation, generally we say no statistics, no big tables. Provide the listener with take-home messages that you can interpret from your own results.
And so with that, we'll take any questions. Feel free to contact us at any time. We would love to talk to you more about your research or just any questions about the application process. And I've included our emails there at the bottom. So it looks like we have a couple questions already, but feel free to submit your questions in the chat or the Q&A box. So one question is, can a proposal be a joint proposal with 2 or more universities working together? And so, yes, it can. You just have to make sure to designate a project leader, and then in the online application, list the other researchers and their universities. The next question is, we need to submit proposals, especially the budget, to our university grants office for approval. Will we be able to compile a proposal to do this before we submit online? And so, yes, you can. So when you can create just the 3-page proposal, and I can go back and show that maybe in the on the application. But yeah, you can that 3-page document that outlines your proposal, your budget, your significance, your preliminary data, things like that. You can use that to submit to your university, I believe, and then you can upload it into the submission, the online submission. Next question: can you submit more than one proposal? And I will let Terril take that one.
Gee, thanks. I guess you could, but I cannot think of a time when that was done. I think it's stronger if you are wrapping your ideas into one proposal and make it strong than having 2, but it's not out of the question. I will guarantee you that Laura and I will get the question from the research committee: why did they submit 2 proposals? So if you decide to do that, we'd appreciate it if you let us know why, so we can answer that question without making something up.
Next question is, can a graduate student submit a proposal?
I think the faculty member has to be the person submitting the grant through the university grants office. A graduate student can be on the proposal. So when they finish their degree and they're applying for jobs, they can list themselves as a grant recipient.
Another question I have is, many university researchers are required to fund some of their own salary. Does AFE allow for that in our proposals?
First, AFE, Laura mentioned this, does not allow the inclusion of overhead or indirect cost on grants. And that's in the bylaws from 1961. As for faculty salaries, that has come up in the last couple of years. And we've discussed it with the research committee, and their response is, we sure hate to see that money that should go to research being used for faculty salaries, but it has to be done in a small way, then that's probably okay. But they're not going to increase the amount of the grant because somebody has to add on faculty salaries.
What is the budget range for projects?
There is no upper limit as stated. Generally, this year we've got one grant at 20,000, and the top is probably about 50,000 per year. Has anything ever been funded more than 50? Yes, and slightly above, but not tremendously. And I think in both those cases, they were probably funded as part of the thrips and botrytis program, which was handled a little bit differently, and usually included a great deal of travel in terms of the programs that were being done in Columbia.
Next question. In the case that we have a project starting this year, but it will last for more than 2 years, can we submit a proposal? Or should the project start after the funds are available?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question. If the funds are not going to be backdated, and if you submit something now, you're not going to know the answer to success or not until January of 2024. And the funding is not going to begin until July 1 of 2024. Now, that being said, Laura mentioned showing a level of background, preliminary research. If you're saying we're going to start a project now, maybe you can include some preliminary results in the proposal, July 1, and that will benefit you tremendously. And better yet, that you've been doing it for more than a year, and you might even have a trade magazine article or a draft of a scientific publication already underway.
I'd like to circle back to Tom's question quick, where he asked, we need to submit proposals, especially the budget, to our university grants office. And he asked, will we be able to compile a proposal to do this before we submit online? And so in that situation, we do recommend that you apply earlier than the August 1st deadline, just to allow that you receive your copy of the application and then you can submit to your university. So if that process takes 4 weeks, then be sure to apply at least 4 weeks ahead of time. That way, if there are any changes, you can go ahead and edit your proposal online and then submit it prior to the deadline.
There was a time when university grants offices did not require you to submit their proposal for budget approval prior to submission. Most universities today, if you do that, they're going to put you underneath the jail, because they like to make sure your numbers are right.
One more question. How important are the peer reviews?
The peer reviews is the second evaluation point. And I have seen, Laura has seen proposals where the relevancy was very high and the peer reviewers say the methods are all wrong. You can't accomplish the objectives by the methods they've set out. And if that happens, they're usually denied. So indeed, the peer reviews are very important. We use 2 types of peer reviewers, depending upon the project and the expertise. One is university faculty, your peers at other universities. And we have a number of industry technical experts that we use, and they're treated equally. But we feel like in both cases, if we've got somebody with a PhD in a company doing, I'll pick media or pesticides or whatever, they're pros at this, and they usually give very, very good evaluations. Very good in terms of very thorough. Doesn't mean they're always saying fund the project. And so in some cases, they're the ones who say this just can't be done, or they may be better experts than some of the university peer reviewers. I've seen this happen where they say this has already been done in this country. So they may be more up to date sometimes.
Another question in the Q&A, how many projects does AFE fund each year?
Depends on the projects and the money. I think generally we're funding 8 to 9 projects in a given year, but we're continuing 7 or 8 projects. So at any given time, we probably have 14, 15, 16 projects that AFE is funding.
And does AFE consider geographics and location in the proposals? Do we look for a balance of proposals from different states or regions?
You want to do that one, Laura?
Not particularly. I don't believe, not necessarily a balance. We just look for projects that are broad-based, that apply a large segment of the industry across the country or even internationally, that will have the most impact on the industry as a whole. Any other questions? Well, if there's no other questions, thank you for joining us. We hope you feel encouraged to apply for funding this year, and we look forward to seeing your proposals by August 1st.